Last month, my colleagues and I from Network Advocates for Catholic Social Justice embarked on a cross-country road trip called Nuns on the Bus and Friends. We were joined by women religious from multiple congregations, and also by our friends, our partners from other faith-based and secular organizations who are dedicated to pursuing good trouble through social justice and the common good. From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to San Francisco, California, we called on people to vote our future. That is, a future where everyone thrives, no exceptions. As we traveled from city to city, we witnessed welcoming communities where neighbors cared for one another. Our hearts were broken open as we heard stories from the individuals we met and organizations we visited who are so rooted in their communities and also so beautifully extend the inclusive love of God to all people. It was through these organizations and these people we met that we were able to witness communities where everyone thrives, no exceptions. Communities where everyone is neighbor and where everyone has a home. Communities where people are welcomed with compassion instead of judgment. And that brings me to today's readings. In Deuteronomy, we hear the commandment to love the Lord your God with your whole being. But what I think is most important is the word that passage starts with, hear. Hear, O Israel, the prophet writes. Today, I want to suggest that we need to put ourselves into this statement. Hear, all you people. Who or what do we need to hear, to pay attention to? Before we can love our God with our whole being, we must practice active and holy listening. We must open ourselves to the movements of the Spirit, to the little fires of God around us who are calling us to attention. This is the only way we can authentically be in relationship with those around us. We must hear the invitation from God to truly love our God with our whole heart, our whole mind, and our whole being. Now, this is a challenge. It requires us to give totally of ourselves to what Sister Sandra Schneider's refers to as the God quest. Or, as Cesar Chavez says, we are giving ourselves over to what he calls his deepest belief that only by giving our lives do we find life. It is to that radical availability to follow where we are called that we are also following the movement of the Spirit wherever she leads us. To love your God with your whole being is daunting in and of itself. However, today's gospel issues one more challenge. After referring to the passage from Deuteronomy, the gospel writer challenges us to love our neighbor as ourself. This, the writer reminds us, is worth more than all the burnt offerings and sacrifices. This commandment should stop us in our tracks. Love your neighbor as yourself? What does that even look like? Who is our neighbor? On Nuns on the Bus and Friends, we witnessed people and organizations who modeled loving your neighbor. At the southern border in Nogales, Arizona, we walked with Sister Eilis McCulloh and Sister Ingracia Robles from Kino Border Initiative. As they led us along the wall, we saw the barbed wire installed to deter migrants. This wire, normally used around prisons in the United States, symbolized to me a culture of fear and hatred that is used to divide us, to make us forget that people seeking asylum are also our neighbors. It takes great courage to love our neighbors as ourselves. In a country and in a world that is divided by fear and hatred of anyone deemed other, we are called to see every person as neighbor, regardless of their country of origin, their gender or sexuality, economic status, education or employment level, where they live or how they worship. We must be open to encounter, to moving beyond fear and hatred and into community. As a sister of the Humility of Mary, my community's constitution puts it this way: we are drawn into a deepening relationship of love. We dedicate ourselves to God and to service with and for others. Our vowed life is a persuasive sign to a world diminished by materialism, injustice, and fear, that God is faithful, that hope is a way of life, and that love brings about justice and peace. May we be beacons of love that bring about justice and peace. May we, as I recite in my vow formula, strive to share the love of Jesus through the message of the gospel and the witness of our life. May this be the way we live out our radical call from God. And may we have the courage to love our God with our whole heart, our whole being, and our neighbor as ourselves. Amen.